Welcome, everybody, this evening to the Mind, Body, and Soul television show coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado studios. I'm your host, Kurt Steve Toth, and also the founder of Conscious Evolution Media. We have with us this evening a very special guest, Mark David Gerson. And we're going to be talking about the theme of the show for this evening is How to Birth Your Book Now. And we are, of course, streaming live on YouTube Live as well as in Hangouts and on ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com. So welcome to the show, Mark David.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
How are you on this beautiful evening?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I already put in a full day of helping corporate America to become conscious. I'm telling you, it's very, very challenging.
That's more than a full-time job right there.
Yes. And now here I am making sure that I continue to be on my path, which is continue to grow and continue to be conscious and have a conscious dialogue with you about this fantastic theme. And I guess you are a guru of how to birth your book now. And why I love this subject is because I believe that everybody has a book in them somewhere. Do you believe the same?
Absolutely. And one of the reasons why I titled the book that we're kind of talking around, birthing your book even if you don't know what it's about, is because, like you, I believe that we all have at least one book in us, but we might not consciously know what it is.
Yeah, and I'm, of course, always willing and able to tell you and everybody else that's viewing why I haven't written one.
Okay, is this a coaching session?
No, I'm just being straight with you. You probably hear this all the time, but actually I found out about something myself, and that is I don't like emails because it requires me to write, so this should give you some idea. And I don't like... So if somebody gives me a task, okay, so if I have to take a test, let's say about something, where I have to become certified about something, if they want to give me a 1,700-page book, and I have a choice between that and watch some training videos, guess which one I will pick?
The book, of course.
No, the training videos. So I'm sure that I am not alone. Matter of fact, this is kind of interesting because this is how we treat children in school, is that we're assuming that every child learns from books only.
Of course.
But that's not true.
No, I mean we all learn in different ways, and we all learn in multiple ways. And sometimes, for example, just going back to your example a moment ago, you may read a book and watch a training video and get different on the same topic and get different information, or take in different information from the two different media. So they're not necessarily mutually exclusive; they're complementary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love videos. I love movies, and I used to read a lot of books, but they're very time-consuming.
Audiobooks?
Good comeback. Yes, actually, my car has all the possible media I could plug in, so I'm going to start that. Thank you for poking me.
Not at all. You go to on the freeway, you go to any truck stop, and it's filled with audiobooks, because that's what long-distance truckers do while they're on the road for hours and hours.
Yeah. Very good. Awesome. I do spend a lot of time on the phone when I'm in the car, but
there's that too.
it's still a great idea. So. So how would you coach me? You know, somebody like me that I just told you the truth about me. How would you coach me? How would I go? Because I believe I have a fantastic story within myself, and that comes from, of course, that I escaped from a communist country. You know, it's interesting. I was only 19, and my whole life is pretty darn interesting, and it's not over yet. I'm just starting.
Well, I guess the first question I would ask you is, how committed are you to sharing that story with other people?
Well, I've been sharing it on this network for the last 10 years.
But how
I just like to hire somebody and say, go watch all the 15,000 shows and just write a book.
Well, but how about and certainly that's a valid way of doing it if you don't want to do it yourself. Although what I would say is that um, we talked before the show about coming from the heart and really connecting. How much more connected would your reader be with a story that comes directly from your heart than from the pen of someone who's watched all 15,000 hours of your video?
Well, it would make, I'm sure it would make a huge difference, of course.
Exactly. That's my first point. If
Yeah.
you really want to touch those people deeply, your potential readers deeply and profoundly, the same way you do on the air, then it's way more effective if it comes from you.
Yeah.
So the first question is, again, how committed are you? And you don't have to be, because not everybody is, to getting that story from the deepest part of you to the deepest part of a reader.
Yeah, very good. I'll have to think about that. So let me share something with you, because this is very similar to, I think we're going to be serving a lot of people by talking about this the way we are talking about it. When I first got into broadcasting, I got into radio, and I did radio for about 3 years. And at the very beginning, when I still remember my very first radio show, and I was scared to death. And I remember being in the studio just for a couple of minutes, and the big boss came in, who ran the studio, and she told me, "Here's your phone, here is your mic, here is your computer, your terminal, and the people behind the glass will tell you who's calling, what their name is, and what they're calling about, and good luck with the show." And she left, and and I looked at the door and I said, "Wow. I really would like to run right now. I don't really want to do this." But then I got in touch with something much deeper, because I've been struggling all my life speaking in front of lots of people, because I was beaten up when I was a little kid, a teenager, every time I spoke out. So I had a whole story about that. So I have similar feelings about writing. Like, if I sit down, doing a show for me is like, driving a car. I don't have to even think about it. But if you sit me down now and I have to, open a book or start my computer up and start writing, it's like nothing is coming. It's even, what the heck am I going to write about?
Well, let me interrupt you and back up a second to the story you just told me about your first radio show.
Mm-hmm.
Now you could do it with your eyes closed and your hands tied behind your back without thinking about it, right?
Right, absolutely. Can't you tell? I have not prepared. I have not prepared for the show whatsoever, other than created the theme.
Of course.
And I didn't even create the theme. I went to your website, because that I can trust when I go to somebody's website like you. I can just look at the theme of the website. That is who you are.
Okay, so can you trust yourself?
Yes,
Again,
absolutely. I can trust myself.
So
yes.
Can you trust yourself in the same way that just because you don't know how to start today doesn't mean that, just like that first radio show, a few nudges in the right direction won't get you going, and you'll look back on today and say, what was I thinking? I didn't know what to do.
Interesting. Yeah. Well.
Because we always start from a place from that zero place, and suddenly we look back and we're afraid or we're unsure. And
I'm actually not scared anymore. I don't really have fear about it like I used to have fear about speaking. I don't have fear about writing. What I'm thinking about is that there is so much I want to say, and because there is so much I want to say, it's like how do I begin? And once I begin, will I ever stop?
Well, okay. So here's another piece of coaching for the coach, which is there is your story, which of course you experienced and you lived and you own, and there is the story that will be the book, which is its own energy, which is its own essence, which is its own entity. So as you work on translating your story into the book, if you connect with the energy, we're speaking about consciousness, if you connect with the energy of the entity that is that book, you will know what to do. Because here's the thing, you are just as we do in the rest of our lives, you're translating energy into the physical. You're taking the energy of your story and you're making it manifest in squiggles on a page or pixels on a screen and ultimately in ink on a page. And your job is not to control the process any more than it is anywhere else in your life. Your job is to listen and to follow the story where it takes you. When I wrote, I have written a memoir. When I wrote my memoir, I had a similar experience to you. When I taught memoir writing, I sat down, I felt very guided and called to write this memoir, which I did not, like you, I did not want to do, even though I had great stories to tell. And the answer, which is the answer that I teach, is just start and trust the process and trust the book itself that you are trying to write, and don't get in the way. Basically the same advice that you would give as a coach in consciousness. Nothing at all to do with creativity, just in life.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, so I'm curious about something. So what I'm curious about is I'm feeling that the market is overloaded with books. Everybody is now, and have been for many years, writing books. I mean, it's like I'm experiencing something very similar to what's happening on YouTube. There are hundreds of millions of videos, and you know, having one piece of video be able to get on top of all the other hundreds of millions of videos in terms of viewership, it takes something very magical and special.
Right, absolutely. But did you start doing this show because you had to, from within, or did you start doing this show because you wanted a bunch of listeners or viewers? What was where did it first come from?
Well, at the beginning, it came from. This was really therapy.
Oh, perfect answer, and I'll tell you why. Because writing a book, like so many other things in our life, is a transformational experience. What I write in my books, and I tell my clients, and I say whenever I talk to people like you, which is, you write the book first for you. You write it because you have to write it. You write it because in writing it, you will have an experience that will change you. Let me give you a personal example from my memoir, which is called Acts of Surrender, which should tell you a whole lot about what the book is about. Of course, I knew my story. I lived it. You know your story. You've lived it. What I didn't see, except as I began to write, were some of the threads that wove the story together. Some of the themes that I had lived, some of which I knew, of course, but some of which I didn't really understand or make the connections in until I was writing it down.
Yeah,
that became a powerful experience for me, so powerful that it was more important for me than for the reader. Clearly, I want someone to read the book. I mean, we're communicating, right? You want someone to watch your show. But I had things that I had to gain from the book that were way more important for me personally than what you were going to get from the book. Because for me, I'm the first audience, not in terms of reader, but in terms of change, in terms of transformation, in terms of consciousness.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay. Well, and then, also, I'm sure you heard the saying many times that when the pupil is ready, the teacher shows up.
Of course.
So it's like, just because I've been doing all this consciousness work for the last 10 years, it doesn't mean that at all that I know everything. Matter of fact, I don't nothing.
I mean, it's like the more you know, the less you know, right?
The less I know, yeah. So it's like, I am really open. So when I have somebody like yourself, because this is a subject matter that's been around me for many years, and I, dismiss it. I just go like, yeah, that would be nice, but I got more important things to do. Right. And so I'm paying attention because the way our network has been working, it's really like a laboratory. It's like things show up on the network based on what I need to pay attention to next. That's how I am living my life these days. That it has to, my life has to flow, and it has to be easy. If it's not easy and fun, I don't want to do it. It's
Sure.
like I just go next. That's just not. Somebody can call me about something like, do I want to start a McDonald's franchise, and the answer will be immediately, no, thank you. It's just not even congruent with who I am. But thank you very much for calling me. You know what I mean?
But
And,
there's also the situation where, as you just expressed, there's been something that's been flitting around you for years
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
that,
yeah,
that you pushed aside, and one day you can't push it aside anymore, even if you have some reluctance, because
yeah. And then you show up.
it's time.
Yeah. Then you show up, and I'm going like, oh, wow, this is really in my face now, and everything that you say is like right on,
Well, you work as a coach, I work as a coach as well, and I
Uh,
know that the clients I attract are mirror back my versions of my own issues. So
yeah.
I get to talk to my clients about my own stuff because I mean, here we are. You're not only gaining from me, but I'm listening to me too. And part of me is saying, okay, what is there in what I'm saying to Steve that is also for me? It's
Yeah,
always an
yeah,
interesting
very good,
process.
very good. So I know just from my own experience that the most excuses I hear from people, as a coach, is that I don't have time. It's either I don't have time or I don't have money. And for me, either one of those things really come up when it comes to writing. So, but I'm wondering, just for the viewers, just for the benefit of everybody that's going to be watching now, what kind of obstacles generally people have? What excuses do they come up with?
Well, we could do the rest of the show just about excuses, but certainly time is one of them,
Hmm.
and or another common one is no one's going to want to read what I have to write. That's very particularly common with memoir, but not only.
Uh,
Or this story has been told before.
uh,
Um, those are people will judge what I have to say. What will
uh,
mothers
uh.
what will my mother say, right? Or what
Yeah.
will my
Well, you see,
kids
I don't
say?
care about I don't care about how people judge me or why they
Right,
judge me.
but
I couldn't care less.
you're the exception, I think, not the rule. And good for you, actually, because one of the I have a book about writer's block too, and one of the big issues when it comes to writer's block is fear of judgment. And even if it's not conscious, it holds us back from saying what it is we really need to say for ourselves, because there's some fear that someone's going to judge us harshly. But let's go back to time, because that's really one of the things that perhaps is the most common, at least at a conscious level. Sometimes it's masking other issues, but at a conscious level, my response would be, I don't know, have you got an hour a week? Have you got 15 minutes a day?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's not even about time. I mean, do you really believe time exists? I think it's
well,
just that.
we've got that too, but I mean, here's the real issue for someone with a family and a full-time job. Where do I squeeze in the time to write? I tell a story in my Act of Surrender memoir about a time when I took on a job that I hated because I needed the money, for the worst job I've ever had. And what I knew I had to do was go back to work on a book that I had started and stopped working on. And I thought, I mean, I'm up at the crack of dawn. It's a physically demanding job. I get back, I eat dinner, and I crash. When am I going to write? So, and I tell the story to clients all the time that it's really important to see where the spaces in where we can make space in our life. So you go to the writing books, and the writing books talk about, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd say, you know what, ain't gonna happen. I mean, I'll do it once, I'll do it twice, and it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Because I'm not that kind of well before dawn person. So then it's okay, so stay up till 2 in the morning. Well, I'm just too tired at the end of the day to stay up till 2 in the morning.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so those don't work.
After 10 o'clock, my head doesn't work anymore.
So what can I do? I asked myself, and this is a really important coaching question. What can I do that is sustainable? Because so often we set goals that are so high we can't meet them, and then we feel like crap after. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, I can get up earlier. How much earlier can I get up? And after going back and forth, between the different parts of myself, the parts that don't want to get up, and all that, I realized that if I set my alarm for 15 minutes earlier than I needed to, and just stayed in bed and wrote, I could sustain that. Wow. And that's what I did. 15 minutes. Some days I wrote one sentence, some days I wrote 3 paragraphs. It didn't matter. I was doing it. And I built up a momentum so that by the time I was able to leave that job, thank God, I had a rhythm going that I was able to build on. And that third version of the first draft that I began in November of that year, I finished in July.
Wow. So it does take a while.
It takes a while, but it doesn't take, I mean, people say, oh, I'll wait till I retire, or I'll wait till my kids grow up, or I'll wait till I'm on vacation, or I'll wait. And if something is important, you don't wait. You find a way to weave it into your life that makes sense.
Very interesting. So I kind of checked out your website a little bit, and I know that you do public speaking and you inspire people. So both of us know, both of us being coaches, we know that we can't make people do anything. They're going to do whatever they're going to do whenever they're going to do it based on their own motivation. We can't really force them or control them. When I started this whole journey with Conscious Evolution Media, I wanted to transform the world, and I still do, but I let go of my previous need to have it happen on my clock. It's just going to happen whenever it's going to happen.
Of course.
So I'm just wondering, how do you inspire masses of people, or do you inspire like 20 groups of 20, groups of 50?
I mean, I've spoken to small groups and big groups, and there are, whatever the size of the group, there's going to be a small number. There's going to be a large number who think they're inspired, and a small number who actually act on it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need, as we all do, which is why commercials play multiple times. Sometimes we need to hear the same message multiple times, as you yourself have just described in terms of yourself with the book, before we're ready to act. And when I work with individuals, I'm increasingly fussy about who I'll work with. I'm only going to work now with someone who is committed and committed to it. It doesn't mean they don't have resistance. It doesn't mean they don't have issues, or we wouldn't be working together. But I've had enough experiences over the years with people who aren't prepared to walk the talk,
right.
that I just won't take them as clients if I intuit that's what's going on.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, actually, that's a distinguishing kind of a thing, a theme in my entire life, especially the last 10 years, is that I used to be the kind of coach before that I could coach others, but I wouldn't take my own prescription. So it's like I was telling people, this is what you need to do because I know this stuff, but I don't have to do it. I'm exempt.
That's right. My little card here.
Yeah.
I don't have to do it.
and I don't. I completely live my life the opposite now. Is that I do it first. I take the leadership of doing the stuff, and then people either follow it or they don't, and it's up to them.
Sure, and that's one of the nice things about a book, as opposed to a coaching client, which is they read the book, they do it, they don't do it, and you've done your work.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of the same way in these shows, is that we talk about these things, and people either get something out of it or they don't, and it's none of my business really. And I used to be really hung up. You asked me about earlier on the show. Asked me about, did I care about numbers or how many people would listen. And at the beginning, because people were telling me, it's people give you so much information, even when you're not asking, all of their opinions, and everybody, in this material world that we're living in, everyone is fixated on, well, how many viewers do you have?
Sure.
Well, how many people leave you notes or messages, or how many people engage with you, and none of that stuff is important to me anymore, really.
No, I mean, with books, it's the same thing. You're on the New York Times bestseller list. I mean, how many good reviews have you gotten? It's all nice to have. It's just not important.
Yeah.
And I do talk about, there's two sides. There's being hung up on getting the good stuff, and there's also being hung up on getting the bad stuff. How do you deal with a bad review? How do you deal with a good review? Because you can let that go to your head just as easily as you can let a bad review destroy you. So it's really, again, holding your center, whatever's going on around you, whether it's the perceived good stuff or the perceived bad stuff. It's all good in the end.
Yeah.
But it's the perception in the moment that gets us in trouble sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't get even engaged with because we do get plenty of engagement on YouTube, and I don't even engage myself anymore. I used to get engaged and respond to people, and I don't anymore, because all they want to do is just share whatever they want to share, and most of them don't even expect a response. So they kind of surprised, they were surprised when I responded. So, so I don't know how that translates to the book industry, but well, let me ask you about tools. Do people concern themselves with what type of tools, like software to use to write a book, or do it just on a piece of paper? Of course, 40 years ago we didn't have computers, so we just used the typewriter.
Right.
So, do people get hung up on this stuff?
I mean, I think less so with novel writing or book writing than with screenwriting, for example, where you're dealing with fixed formats, and screenwriting software can be really helpful, making sure that you write in that format. When you're writing a book, it's just paragraphs and chapters, and to my mind, any piece of word processing software that'll let you do it is fine. And there is software specifically for writing a novel. I don't use it. I don't think it's necessary. I think if you use, I'm on a Mac. I use Pages. People use Microsoft Word. I mean, anything like that, I think is just fine.
Yeah.
I don't outline, so I don't care about that stuff. I don't write. I don't make index cards. So I don't need that stuff. I just start and just keep going until it's done.
When do you know it's done?
Well, if it's a first draft, at a certain point you realize you've come to an end. In terms of knowing when you've hit the final draft, that takes a bit more discernment. If you have control and perfectionist issues, then you'll want to keep going until well past its best before date. At a certain point, you have to decide it's time to let it go. It's never. You see, one of the issues is it's never going to be perfect. Just like live radio or live TV, there's always going to be something that happens. With a book, it's never going to be perfect. At a certain point, you say, okay, this is the best that I can do as who I am today. The next book will be better because I will have grown.
Well, yeah, interesting. I mean, that's how I view my shows. Like this show is perfect just the way it is, and even if it's not, if there are imperfect pieces in this show, even that's perfect.
Of course.
So,
what
is there to do?
And even, no one says you have to write it on a computer. I wrote the first 2 drafts of my first novel longhand. And there were computers back. It wasn't that long ago. But it's because I had spent many years as a paid writer, either public relations or newspaper or magazine, writing on deadline to other people's specifications. And I found that when it came time to be creative, if I sat down at my desk and my computer, I felt kind of hemmed in by that old way I had been. and so I just shut off the computer and wrote longhand. I don't do that anymore, but I know that there are plenty of writers who do still write longhand because they feel there's a strong connection between kind of the heart and the page. My handwriting is so horrible that it's hard to keep doing that, but
Uh,
but I think the real answer to the question is whatever works for you is the best way to go. And what
mm,
works for you on one draft or one project may be totally different from what works for you on the next. You just
mm.
be in the moment with whatever's going to work.
Yeah, very good. And do you self-publish or do you take it to a publisher?
It's interesting. That novel we just talked about. I actually had an agent who was unable to, who in the end was unable to sell it, although she tried valiantly, and I had lists of other places she pitched it to. And one day, after we had parted company, I was driving, and that little voice, the voice of the book, I guess, said, "It doesn't matter how it gets out; it just matters that it gets out." And at that point, I decided I would just do it myself, and I've been doing it myself ever since. I have 11 books. I've done them all myself.
Wow, very good. Uh, so what I'm also curious about is, I'm involved with corporate America right now and connecting it with consciousness. I'm curious about, do you find that there is an old model of writing, like a traditional old model, and is there a new way of doing it? Do you find yourself in that?
Less with book writing, although it's still there. I mean, I wrote a book on screenwriting called Organic Screenwriting, which really broke the mold. I mentioned before that I don't outline.
Hmm,
I don't do a lot of the things that a lot of more. I don't plot my books if it's fiction. So I don't outline it if it's nonfiction. I just start and let the book guide me. So perhaps the new model for me is being in the moment with the story. And I would define story as anything you're writing. It doesn't mean that it's fiction. It could be anything. Being in the moment with what you're writing and
hmm,
allowing it. One of the metaphors I use when I'm teaching is that imagine that you're in a car with your story. Your story is in the driver's seat and you're in the passenger seat. And you're being shown, you're being taken to where the story needs to take you. And again, whether that's fiction, nonfiction, memoir, anything. Um, so I think that, for me, my creative awakening, which happened, I guess, about 15, 20 years ago, happened around the same time as my spiritual awakening. And what I came to see was that all the kind of precepts of spirituality applied equally to creativity because life is a creative act, and there could be no separation. So I think if we're talking about a new model, it's looking at the creative process in the same way as we look at our lives. And
yeah. And are you saying then? Well, this is interesting because maybe this is perhaps why I haven't written this book because the same thing happened to me. Like it's almost like we have a parallel going on. 10 years ago, that's when my creativity um, really surfaced, and so was my spirituality, and it was basically 10 years ago. It was either I take my life or I change my life, and how I changed my life is I was actually smart enough to know that in order to not destroy myself, I have to stop doing what I was doing that got me down to the bottom. But if I don't replace it with something that I thoroughly passionate about and enjoy, I'm not going to succeed.
sure,
So that's what I did, and then I went through these 10 years, and now I'm at a place where I can actually quiet my mind. Like right now, I don't, throughout the entire show, I don't have a chatter in my head.
hmm
So I'm wondering now, and I'm curious, how would this really give itself to writing a book where I wouldn't have all these conversations going on, like, what to write about, what should I do next, because none of this stuff is really happening.
Well, you wouldn't need to be having those conversations because
Right.
that's all in your head, and that's
Right.
not that's not where the
Right.
book is. The book is in your heart.
In my heart. So
So it's being in the
yeah.
moment and being mindful as you are in the same ways that you are in your life, and
Yeah.
just
So yeah.
being in
Got it.
that place of allowing, being that place of surrender.
Yeah. It makes complete sense. Yeah. So I knew that by the end of the show I will be on the hook. Um, because first of all, there's nothing I could tell you that you couldn't come back and prove and prove that either I am not on the right track or put me back on the right track. So um, this was one of those things when I was on a weekend retreat and I was the assistant to the coach, and the weekend retreat was about um, you know uh, living living with the heart, like living with your heart. Isn't that interesting? We were just talking about that. And the coach was asking this question of everybody that was there. If I'm asking you for like 1 week from now, like by next Friday, do something and come back and share it with the group that would be completely outside of your comfort zone, what would it be? And people were putting up their hands, and I wasn't supposed to be a participant, but the participants pissed me off. So I was reacting to the participants. They were saying things like, "I'm going to clean out my garage," and
Right.
somebody was saying, "I'm going to read this book that I've been wanting to read for the last 5 years. I've been procrastinating about this thing, and I'm going to do it." And that really bugged me. It activated me. So I said, "Stop, stop, stop, stop." So let me tell you something that's really outside of my comfort zone. Okay, it's nothing like what you shared. Um, I haven't spoken to my parents for 20 years, and I, I thought by not telling my wife that my parents actually were living, I told my family that my parents passed away so that I didn't have to deal with them. And I lied to my kids, and I thought that I buried them, but I thought about them all the time.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And as soon as I finished that sentence, I knew because everybody was looking at me, and my heart was open, and their heart was open, were open, and I was on the hook.
Sure.
So guess what? I reconnected with my parents by the
You
following
unburied
Friday.
your parents.
Yeah. So I feel like that right now that I'm on the hook
Right. Well,
because
it's
it's
because cleaning out your closet is not really a comfort zone issue. I mean, it's an issue because you don't want to do it, but it's not a comfort zone issue. It's just a procrastination issue.
yeah, right, right.
But writing a book or dealing with a major issue from our past. I mean, those are comfort zone issues. And I was talking to a client this morning who was stalled on her book, and reminding her that writing the book is as transformational for her as what she has to say will be for the people who read it. And that's what was holding her back.
Wow.
Because she didn't, at an unconscious level, she didn't see that she was holding back on dealing with certain issues that the book itself was bringing up.
Very good. So initially, when I started this network 10 years ago, I didn't start it about consciousness. I didn't even know what consciousness was. What I started it about, I started about self-expression, because I felt from my own background that people are unable or enable, I don't know. This language of ours is very funky. They're unable to express themselves, and after 10 years, I still feel that way. That people withhold communication because they don't know how to express it.
Well, I think it's a two-parter. They don't know how to express it, and they don't know how to go to the places where the true expression actually lives within them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one of the things that I like to think that I'm doing when I'm teaching writing is not so much telling you how to write a book, but showing you how to connect with those places within you where your passion, your passion, your commitment, your stories, your expression lives, and then giving you permission to let those out.
Mm, very good. So tell us a little bit about maybe do you use any kind of a process to take people through this experience of getting started and keep moving forward and finishing?
Well, one of the things that I really believe is I don't use a system, basically. I work with, I mean, if I'm working with a group, I'm tuning into the group as you are to your guests. If I'm working with an individual, I'm doing that as well. But really in the end, I do use a lot of guided meditation, guided visualization in my work, partly because it takes people outside of their everyday world, which is usually where the hang-ups live. Mm-hmm. So it gives them an entry into a place within themselves that they don't always go to, even if they are meditators. Mm-hmm. Perhaps the foundation of what I teach when I'm teaching writing is something I call writing on the muse stream, which comes from the name of my first book, which was called, my first book for writers, which was called The Voice of the Muse, Answering the Call to Write. But writing on the muse stream is really nothing more than automatic writing or stream of consciousness writing or the kind of morning pages writing that Julia Cameron wrote about in her book. The difference is it's not an exercise, it's a way to actually write something. Because it's a way of getting out of your own way. You start writing and you don't stop. You don't stop to think. You don't stop to edit. You don't stop to correct. You don't stop to judge. You don't stop for any reason whatsoever. Because the moment you stop, that's the moment where the judgment kicks in, the self-criticism kicks in, the doubt kicks in, the second guessing kicks in, and all the jewels of the writing get smashed. Now, that's going to create a very messy first draft, right? Because you're not, I mean, the first draft of the Moon Quest, my first novel, was one chapter, 400 pages, one chapter. And I didn't know the story. I just kept writing until it was finished. So then, of course, you have to go in and write and do revisions. And I don't call it editing. I call it revision for a very specific reason. Think of the word, revision. It's about revisiting your original vision for the work, and just as a jeweler would do, honing and polishing that rough piece of stone until it resembles as closely as your skill and craft can manage its best expression.
Yeah, very good. So I want to speak about the title for a minute, how important the title is and when does it need to be created. Like I'm looking at the title behind you, and that's an awesome title because it when I read that title of that book of yours, it doesn't leave any questions for me. What is the book about? Right. It's like it's so clear. It's about how to birth your book, and you're a guru, you're a teacher. So it's like I have no questions about what the title is about. You know what I mean? It's sure. Like right on.
Well, here's the actual book, but my books have all named themselves.
At the beginning, before you started, or during?
It varies. With birthing your book, I already had that title. It was actually a chapter in my first book for writers, The Voice of the Muse. And that chapter actually happened in a kind of amusing way because I was giving a talk in Sedona at a bookstore about writing. And when I've lived in Sedona a couple of times, and when I lived in Sedona, people would come up to me all the time. They'd been to a reader, they'd had some kind of experience, and had been told, you have a book in you. They didn't know what it was about. Mm-hmm. So I have this book in me, but I don't know anything about it. And suddenly I thought,
can you get it out of me?
Yeah,
can you help me? Can you help me make it
out of me? That's right. But I titled the talk "Birthing Your Book," even if you don't know what it's about, and that title kind of stuck with me. And back in the summer when I finished the screenwriting book, that title came back to haunt me and said, "I'm a book all on my own. I'm not just a chapter in another book." So here was a book where I had the title, but not much else. With my novel, The Moon Quest, I didn't even know the story, let alone the title. I didn't know the title until about halfway through the first draft. So really, one of the things that we talked about at the beginning, which is getting in touch with the essence of the story, getting in touch with the essence of the book. You do that, and you will know what the title is.
Mm-hmm.
It will come to you kind of in a funny sort of way, like this did, or you'll just know it, and it'll be the right. Just like when I was naming the characters in the novel, sometimes I just knew just like that what a character's name was, and with a couple of characters, it changed so many times I couldn't quite touch it until the very end, and then finally the light went on. I said, "Of course, that's the character's name." So it's just staying in that place of openness and receptiveness as we are in our spiritual lives to the information that is already present for us that we perhaps can't touch in the moment. But then we do, and there it is.
So what you're saying then is that we're all pregnant with a book.
At least sometimes with twins or triplets.
Yeah, and it takes about as long.
Sometimes longer.
Sometimes longer, or it can be shorter.
Or it can be. Well, it took me the first draft of The Moon Quest, my very first book, 5 or 6 months. The first draft of the Star Quest, its sequel, 11 years.
Oh wow.
The first draft of the Sun Quest, the final book in the trilogy, 3 weeks. So that's just the kind of range. And part of it is, if writing a book is a transformational experience, then sometimes we have to grow into the book that already exists before we can finish it. And sometimes that takes time.
Wow. Is it supposed to be painful, or is that just people sharing their opinions that book writing's supposed to be painful, just like birth itself?
There is no supposed to be. Okay.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, and it'll be different for different people. It'll be different. Again, the Sun Quest, again, that third novel, it just flowed out of me. I wish all my writing were that easy, and some of it is, and some of it isn't. Part of it is our resistance. Part of it is, if you're writing a personal story, if you're writing a memoir, and you're writing about a difficult experience that you haven't made public before, that can be hard if you're writing it from a deep, authentic place. So, I have so-called rules for writing, and the first rule in all my rules is there are no rules. That's also the last rule, in case you've forgotten it by the time you get to it, because really, just as in life, every creative experience is unique. You have to allow that. You have to allow that to play out in the perfect way for that experience and for you as who you are when you're having that experience. Whether it's writing a book or riding a bicycle, whatever it is.
Yeah, and it also sounds like to me like having an open mind should be one of the rules as well, because I'm finding these days that I have a much easier time. It's really the wrong word. I have all kinds of issues with the English language and any other language. It's just too limited to describe the experiences that I'm having. It's like I don't even have words for it.
Well, and that's why when I say that perfection doesn't exist, because really what you're translating is energy, which is infinite, into words on a page, which is finite. And so you will never, ever, 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 as long as you live, as hard as you try, get that energy exactly onto the page. So just give it up. Just do the best you can, because, one of the jokes I tell is until I can plug a USB cable from my brain to your brain, there's no way you're going to have my experience. You'll have your version of my experience. And frankly, as a reader, I would rather have that anyhow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's just another thing, is that once you write a book and it's out there, people are going to perceive it through their own their own experience and their own ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I've
so
discovered things
it
about
won't be
my
the same book as the one you wrote.
Exactly. Well, I
Your
discovered
book will
things
have
about
as many versions as many people read it.
Absolutely. I mean, I discovered things about my books that I didn't know were there from readers. And of course they are there. They're just there not on a conscious level, but they're there. And I wrote them in there, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing consciously. But I did know what I was doing, and that's where the trust comes in.
And do you like after your book is done, it's published, do you still go back and read it?
Not normally,
Or you kind of done?
although this is interesting. Some of my books were available only as ebooks for a time. And when I decided it was time to turn them into print books, I did reread them all. And it was a very interesting and not always comfortable experience. It was not uncomfortable because I thought, oh, the book is crappy. It was uncomfortable because I was revisiting all my issues from when I wrote the book, which are there in the book, of course, whether they're metaphor in a novel or actual in a memoir. And again, seeing the themes in my life and seeing that those themes continue at deeper levels or at higher levels of consciousness, depending on how you want to put it, at deeper emotional levels and higher levels of consciousness. And that was both kind of gratifying and concerning all at the same time.
So you may notice things. Is that what you're saying? Is that you may notice things revisiting a book that you wrote that you did not notice when you were writing.
Absolutely.
Because you have grown since.
Exactly. No, and again, if you pick up a favorite novel, for example, and that you read 20 years ago and read it again today, you're going to get different things out of it, even though you didn't write it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So think how much more profound that is if you wrote it, because suddenly it's your stuff on the pages, not somebody else's, or not your experience of somebody else's, but your experience of your own stuff.
Right. So when you work with people, do you ask them, or do you? I'm sure you do, but I'm going to ask you anyway, just for the benefit of the viewers. Do you really want to know their motivation, or the other way of saying it, their agenda, writing the book?
Yes and no. In kind of the initial kind of discovery, if you will, as to whether or not we're a good fit to work together. I do want to know why they're writing the book, or why they feel called to write this book, because not every motive is a motive that I'm comfortable working with, or is simply a good fit for the way that I work. Let's just put it that way.
And do you feel that they tell you the truth, or do they just interview well?
They tell me the truth. Well, here's the thing. They tell me the truth as they see it. My job is to read in between the lines of what they're saying.
Mm. And how do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know how I do it. Frankly, it's an intuitive thing. It's from years of working with people, and working with my intuition and trusting what I get, even if it doesn't always make sense in the moment, which is again the same thing that I do when I'm writing. So really, I'm listening on two levels. I'm listening here and I'm listening here, and what I hear in my heart is in the end more important. So even when I'm coaching somebody, and I ask a question or they tell me something, what the answer they're giving or even the question they're asking isn't always what I need to address. I need to go beneath that to see what's going on, to sense what's going on, and respond from that place, because we're not dealing with surface stuff here. We're not dealing with where does the comma go. I don't do that kind of work anymore, thank God. Because I haven't.
Or colon or whatever. Who cares?
Right. It's what I'm dealing with is where is your heart in this piece of work. That's what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Or where are you in this?
Very good. You're doing some incredibly important work. There's no doubt. So if you would be willing, please share with the viewers how they can get your book, or books. Actually, you wrote a whole bunch of them. How can they get your coaching? How can they invite you to speak? All those kind of things.
Sure. I don't know if you can see it on the banner behind me. My website is there.
This is in HD. We can even see the We can even see the dots that you don't want us to see.
If you go to my website, it's www.markdavidgerson, all one word.com, and you can contact me there. You can find the books there. You can ask me questions there. All my books are on Amazon, on most Amazon sites in paperback, on all Kindle sites in ebook, as well as Google Play, all the usual ebook platforms. You'll find me on Facebook. In fact, Mark David Gerson, all one word, is the user ID I use almost everywhere in the world. So you'll find me pretty much anywhere using that. And by all means, contact me on my website, on Facebook, on Twitter, if you have questions, and look for the books. And if you have a book that you can't quite get out or can't quite get finished, then I'm probably your guy.
Fantastic. So have you ever tried to do like a TV show about and I'm not asking you because I want you to start a TV show on Conscious Evolution Media. I'm just curious because I come across quite a few people. What's quite a few? Maybe 4 or 5 people in the history of this network that did what you do.
Mm-hmm.
At different levels and at different. I must say that you're probably the most conscious and most clear
Mm-hmm.
about this work. And I know some people that have made it a very big business. I know somebody that's coming from the PR industry. She has made it into a huge business. Where she has actually involving very famous authors to take these newbies, as
Mm-hmm.
we may call them, and put maybe a chapter of their book into a new book that may include 20 chapters of 20 different authors.
Right.
And somebody really big, I'm sure you're familiar with this model. Somebody really big really signs off on the front cover, and that helps them to get their name out there. So I'm just wondering if you have ever thought about that. How could you, do you believe that your work is about just doing it one person at a time, or have you ever thought about how do you take this out to the masses?
Absolutely, I've thought about that. I've had several radio shows off and on over the years. I've done video interviews, not live, with other authors. And
so this is the first one that you've done live? Wow.
No. I mean, I've done live as a guest. I'm talking about as a host.
Okay, as a host.
As a host, I've done live radio as a host. I haven't done live video as a host. I know I've done tons of stuff like this because I just love to do it. Because as you can see, I'm passionate about what I talk about.
Yeah.
But for me, getting the word out to as many people as possible, which is why a book can be helpful as well, is important because I think this is about way more than writing and creativity. This is about living from an authentic place, and writing is simply one way of getting you to that place. And so I'm open to whether it's speaking or whether it's broadcasting, any way to get this word out to as many people as possible. That's part of what I'm passionate about.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that you connected it with consciousness and you connected this whole process to being in the moment. I think you said that several times throughout the show, is to write from the moment, so be in the present, which is what we attempting to teach the public, is that there are many ways to live our lives, but certainly one of them is to be in the present. And
Sure.
And I think when I asked you the question about how do you really get somebody like what they are really saying, and you said your intuition, and I think I wanted to interrupt you there, but I decided not to. So I'm just going back there now. It's really, I think you have developed your talent of listening to a level where you can hear the things that people are not necessarily saying.
Sure, and I think we all have that gift. It's not practiced enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same thing applies. When you're writing, can you listen to the story, whether it's a story that's coming from you or the story that's coming from within me? Can I listen to that? Can I hear what's really coming through can I trust that even when it doesn't make sense? And I think that really is one major key to conscious living.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'm just also reminded that the general public watches like 4 to 6 hours of television a day. So it's not like there's no time to take somewhere where maybe it's not the best use of our time.
Sure.
But then a lot of I'm not gonna sound like maybe I will that I'm judging them. It's just I used to do that. I used to sit in front of the TV for hours watching mindless stuff just because I didn't want to deal with myself. And I don't do that anymore. So that freed up a lot of valuable time and energy.
Well, so that goes back to the very first question you asked me about time and where do we find the time? Well, clearly the time is there. I guess the question is, where do we choose to find the time? What do we choose our priorities to be? Where do we choose to invest our energy and our time and our passion?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I don't want people to think after just watching this show that only conscious people should be writing a book.
No.
And then,
we're all conscious.
How do you define who's conscious and who isn't?
Well, we're all conscious in a certain way.
Yeah, we are. All of us are. It's just some of us more present to ourselves than others.
and we live and we write from wherever we are in the moment, and the act of doing that deepens our experience so that we're writing and living from a deeper place in the next moment.
Yeah. So I even see it. I might be out of context here because I'm certainly not a professional about writing, but what just came to me is this could be a form of meditation, writing a book.
It absolutely is, and I actually do talk about that.
Do you?
I do, because it really is a form of meditation, because you're in the moment, you're out of judgment, you're not thinking, you're simply in the quiet space of surrender to whatever you're experiencing. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I use meditation. In fact, I have a recording of guided meditations for writers and my books are filled with meditations because it's a way to get to that place.
Fantastic. Well, I couldn't have probably closed this show on a better note. So guess what? The Conscious Hour is over, and we proved this on every show, because this is a conscious show just like all the others, that we proved that time doesn't exist, because my experience of this show was just 5 minutes. We just started.
We went very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, so, when you're in your passion, that's the way it always is.
So this is another way to actually gain a lot more time.
There you go.
Because this was not an hour.
That's right.
In our reality, right? And what else matters? I don't care about what other people's reality is right now, because all there is yours and mine right now, right?
That's right.
So here we go. So thank you very much, Mark David. You were absolutely fantastic. It was so easy to have this dialogue with you. So thank you very much, and I respect you very much for what you do in the world every day, and you're touching people's lives just like we are. Your work is very important in the world, especially in the mess that we are in right now. So. And we didn't even talk about that because it just didn't come up. But if a few million people right now in America would start writing a book and start being present, I think it would make a difference.
Absolutely.
In the life of Americans.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much, and for everybody else, make sure that you keep coming back to Mind, Body, and Soul TV, which has been around for more than 8 years, and always same time, same place. Sometimes on Thursdays, most of the time on Friday evenings. We'll see you next time on Mind, Body, and Soul TV at ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com and on YouTube Live. Thank you so much. Have a great evening and a fantastic weekend.